name is Robert Wallace, and I want to share with you 5 tips to help you to overcome the barriers that come along with trying to implement the law of attraction. That universal law that helps you or causes you to manifest the things that you desire into this reality, and the barriers that we often are confronted with. So let me just take a moment to put in perspective. I'm going to tell you who I am, and then I want to tell you some of the problems that people who are implementing the law of attraction have had, and maybe you can relate if you are in the midst of applying those laws yourself. I'm 27. I grew up in Michigan, Jackson, Michigan, and I grew up in a small town. Wasn't a lot of opportunity. Things were looking bleak. Gray skies. After a while, though, I started to really grasp onto the idea that I was here for something more. And in the midst of that, I was forced to confront the reality that I was missing a big chunk of information. So I started to pray. And sometime in 2007 or so, I discovered The Secret, the law of attraction, the movie, documentary, and it changed my life. Took me from where I was trying to make things go to actually making things go with a key piece of information, and that is what I think about is actually creating the reality that I'm living in. So I didn't know that at the time, and I started to apply the law of attraction, and now my life is totally different set of circumstances, and I'm very happy in every sector of my life. I want to give you 5 tips, 5 steps to improving your ability to manifest using the law of attraction. 5 things that I had to come to a realization about, and 5 things that I feel like most people don't get. So these are, and starting with number 1, you need to avoid counter-intentions. A counter-intention, or to be at cross purposes with an idea or a belief that you have, is responsible for killing many, many dreams and for causing many people to fail. This is where you believe one thing, but then you believe that something else can be true too that comes against that belief. You believe that you can have something, but then you also believe that if that happened, something bad would happen, or if that happened, you would be a bad person, or if that happened, you wouldn't be able to handle it. And that other belief, that subconscious fear, is what stops many people. That's the first thing. You really need to focus on getting clear about what you want and separating your fears and your the misnomers, the misapprehensions that you have from the belief that you want to embrace. The second tip that I'm going to give you, and I think this is so important, it's to pray without ceasing. The Bible says to pray without ceasing. What is it that you can do without ceasing other than breathing? It's thinking. And even thinking affects your breathing. But thinking and praying are really the same thing. When you think something, it goes out into the electromagnetic field, into your soul, out into the universe in terms of frequencies, and it brings back the things, the circumstances, the people that match the identity of that thought process. And so you need to watch all thoughts, because all thoughts are essentially requests. They're requests. third thing that I think is really important is not to need it too much. Not need or not want what you're requesting too much. And in some ways not really need it at all. Maybe to want it, but not need it. If I have a chicken in my hands, or if I have a whole duck in my hands, and I really want this duck, and I'm just strangling this duck because I want it so bad and I don't want it to leave, and snap, I snap its neck and it just flaps over and I kill the duck. In this instance, I wanted it too much and I've killed it, and that's what a lot of people do with the things that they want in their lives. They need things to happen so much that they actually sabotage them from actually happening. And when things like that happen, they don't understand why things are being pushed away, or why the universe is working against them, or God's fighting them. In reality, they don't realize this, but it is their joy and their satisfaction on the inside which brings it to them, the thing that they desire. And as a way to think, to circumvent this issue, I'm recommending that you simply imagine what worst case scenario could be. It not working out, you're not having what you want, or you're getting something less than what you think you want, or something less than what you want, or something less than what you think you need. And then imagine working with it and making a success out of it. When you can make a success in your mind out of a failed acquisition, then what you really want seems to come to you faster. Because you're not blocking the flow. You're not saying you need to stop. Just stop the presses until I get this one thing. You're saying, look, I know all things are transient. All things are in flux. My feelings, my possessions, what's here today is gone tomorrow. You know, rust and moth, decay, these things, they're passing. We don't take them with us anyway. So it's having that passive attitude that actually allows you to become a port of passage for the canal of the river of good things that life is passing through and by all of us. And some people are way inland, and some people are right by the Nile, and they're soaking up the good stuff. The fourth thing is for you to picture your goal as done. And what that is really is what we're all I've been taught and are always told is to imagine the thing that you want, or you're being accomplishing the thing. So if you're in the car, if you're in the house, I like to imagine myself in wherever. If I'm just trying to get somewhere undetected or without issue, or if I'm trying to get in a certain state or a certain circumstance, I like to visualize myself there and just cheering, just up and down, just cheering, just happy. I'm just so happy. And then I walk on and I just continue knowing in good faith that this is coming to pass. Somehow it's just always happens. And so you just know with a little bit of practice in that you're going to see, but you want to keep your eye on the final product. And the fifth thing is to extrapolate you're praying, and you're imagining. This is how you take a mental idea and you bring it into the spiritual. You imagine the thing, and then you start to look at the details. And then you start to extrapolate on the details. So if there's something that I'm wanting to accomplish or wanting to acquire, or a person or circumstance that I'm needing or wanting to draw into my life, then you're going to want to just close your eyes. You're going to want to visualize what it is that you want. And then you want to start looking at the details. Now, this is where you need to have a belief in your ability to discern, and you need to have the ability to create and extrapolate on your own, and use your intuition and use your imagination. Because as you start to imagine the details of the house and the mortar and the holes in the mortar, and then you decide, because you're deciding, I'm going to go look at the glass. And you go look at the glass, and you look at the paint, and just how, and the trim. These sorts of things start to elicit details. Your interest in these things makes them bigger for you. And so that interest in exploring and experiencing these things creates organically a natural experience, which is where all the power is. Thank you for your time. Again, 5 tips. You need to avoid counterintentions. Get clear about what you want. Pray without ceasing. Every thought's a prayer, so watch all of your thoughts and start to refine them. Don't need it too much. The more you need it, the more you're strangling it. If you love it, let it go. It'll come back. Picture what you want. That way, when the thing happens, you can sit there and realize that it's because of knowing what you want that it comes. And when it happens, you can experience that joy. All right, now I want to tell you something that you probably may not be aware of. You might be aware of, but this is the truth that you have to digest. This is the reality that you probably have to start to own up to, and that's this. In order to appropriate the things that you desire in life, you're going to have to really be as strong of a magnet as you can be. And that requires a couple things out of you. It requires that you're happy. And when you're happy, then things kind of just happen for you magically, and circumstances, that patience there, the good thoughts are there, and things seem to work out on their own. And the other thing is that you need to have a congruency between what you believe about life and about your morals and ethics and what you're actualizing. This is where the choice, now this is where it's like, okay, I want something, but I don't have money for it. Okay, we're going to use a tactic called the law of attraction, where we can appropriate the things we desire without having money. But it still requires something out of you. It requires a payment of sorts. But it's not cash. It's not cash. It's your sacrifice to become a better person. And really, because that definition varies for each person, my definition of what makes me a better person, now it's a better person than where you are, because here's the thing. Like most people, you probably have ideals or beliefs that are a little bit above where you're at. You think, most of us believe, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And that's where most of us fall short, just that simpleness right there. We get mad at somebody sometimes, or we're not patient with somebody, and maybe we should be. By taking and raising ourselves through this work, which is the payment that is required to really emit the power and the force behind the magnetism, which is going to come about through a positive attitude, but this really helps to create the joy also. We're going to need to be in a great harmony with ourselves. This is going to allow us to focus our energies and have a strong power coming out of us. When we're dispersed and our energies and our beliefs are dispersed, and then one way in here, and then we're trying to be happy in here, we're still not going where we want. And we can have plenty of manifestations, but we want to take it to the max. We're going to need to get in complete harmony. That's mind, body, and spirit. The spirit says, I want to be altruistic. I want to take care of people and live and love and make sure that I am an example to people and that I do for everything that I can for the people. The mind says there's the practicality behind my decisions, and there is the decisions that I can make on a day-to-day basis to make things better, and there's the decision of my intellectual approach to this whole spiritual matter. And then there's the body, which is actually turns out to be the byproduct of this relationship. But the body, which exists in the third dimension, also gets to enjoy the third dimensional toys. So you want to make the body happy, maybe because you believe you're the body. So we take a couple steps back and we say, what's going on in the mind? How are you approaching your relationship to your body? What do you believe about your body that maybe isn't true? That's making you an effect of everything that happens. Makes you feel like things are happening to you, when in reality, whatever's happening to you is just a reflection of what you're already putting out. And so through that mismanagement of thought, we can assess a person who is not taking accountability or responsibility for their life. Now, we're going to go a step higher, and we're going to say, let's talk on the spiritual realm. Let's talk about the vibration of beliefs, what resonates with our higher spiritual selves. Because when we start to make decisions in favor of that, which is, I would say, the higher of the three, the highest of the three, then as we trickle down to the mind can work better, and we trickle down to the body, and the body is enjoying the benefits of a fluidically working mind-body-spirit relationship, which requires that we know what we believe, that we have high enough standards, that we're expecting enough out of ourselves, which is the most out of ourselves, and that we align ourselves with those beliefs through the thoughts and the words and the actions. So first, what you put your mind on, you're thus thinking about, right? Which you, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what you're full of comes out of your mouth, okay? And what you talk about and you think about, obviously, are going to become your actions. Those actions become habits, which are going to bear their own fruits. You want to start at the top, where the thoughts and the beliefs and your interaction with those beliefs are. In the law of attraction, it's all about as within, so without. And to simply have set a stage for wanting a thing, which is a great important step, more importantly, the stage has to be clean. Behind the stage, the lights have to be working. The cords that are going to open the curtain have to be functional. The details need to be healthy and in correct order. Otherwise, all you have is maybe a movie set where the dreams manifest, but when you step away and you push it back, the whole thing falls apart and it's just a giant sham. So you want to make sure that you have the structure, the infrastructure to contain the stage for the manifestation of your desires. That means that a lot of integral, internal work needs to be done between you and yourself. That means that, let's say you're sitting there and you're watching this program right now and you're wondering to yourself, what could I improve on specifically that pertains to this category that Robert's speaking about? What about my thoughts do I need to change? Well, maybe it's the way that you interpret your environment. And I would say that this is probably maybe 90% of the problem for most people. It's their interpretation of what's happening. They see something happen and they think somebody's doing it for good or for ill. They maybe think that somebody has a motive, or they think that somebody is a good person, they're just naturally born that way, or somebody has had everything given to them. All these assumptions that don't actually mean anything. They're just the context in which you frame your reality to yourself. The problem with that is most of the time we don't have all the information on another person. Most of us, if we look in the mirror, don't know much about ourselves. We don't know why we did that thing, or whatever the situation that we're trying to figure out of ourselves, why this is happening to us. And so how can we understand truly and interpret and assume things about other people when there's so much that we are falsely assuming about ourselves? So we can step back, and there's a way that we can just a blanket way to handle this, and that's that we're not going to judge anybody for anything. Now here's a little sneak peek. If you haven't already become privy to the fact that everything and every judgment and these interpretations of what you see in other people are actually just reflections of yourself, then you may be missing the point that you are not really looking at them. You're not looking at their face. You're not looking at their sins. You're looking at you, your face, your sins. Because everything that you see in others, which you pull away from your experiences with other people, is a reflection of yourself. If your inward self is clean and pure and in harmony and holy, you're going to see that in other people. Even if maybe somebody says subjectively, or they're taking their test and they're saying objectively, this person is lacking intelligence, or this person has ill intent, you're not going to see that. You're going to see the best in that person. Because at the heart of every person is a spark of God, is a piece of goodness. What covers up that connection between you and them is what we call the ego. That is the story, that is the facade, that's the mask that we put on and we build and we paint that separates us from who we really are and what other people see of us. This is a defense mechanism. It has in itself the capacity and the desire to protect itself at any cost, right or wrong. And so that in and of itself is this toxic belief that maybe we are our body, or there is a separation between ourselves and everybody else. There's a separation between us and God. And so in order for you to ignore the egos of other people, you need to get past the ego of yourself. That means you need to see yourself as worthy, as loving, as having the Spirit of God within you. And in order for you really to buy into that, once you tell yourself the story, because you're going to start to create higher standards for yourself. You start to expect higher things out of yourself as you're raising the standards of yourself, for yourself. And becoming in harmony with those beliefs is what is going to give you the confidence to say to yourself, I'm a peaceful person. I'm a loving person. I mean well for other people. The Spirit is working in me. And when you're able to say that, as within, so without, you're going to start to see that in other people. And so when you see another person do something, whether it's good or bad, or like Shakespeare said, nothing is evil in and of itself, but it is thinking that makes it so. Your interpretation of what's happening isn't going to be an interpretation of judgment or condemnation, but rather an interpretation of it is what it is. It's without judgment. You see that a person is is removing a person, is looking for something. They're trying to compensate for something. Let's say if somebody's robbing somebody's of their purse. Now, of course, we want to get on that. We want to interrupt that action. And we want to, save that woman who's maybe having her purse taken. But it's the way that we handle and confront that person, and the way we think and feel about them. It's the understanding that we can choose to have for them. It's the compassion that we can choose to have for them. But more importantly, the choice is even less of a choice and more of a byproduct of thinking correctly. When you view yourself with objective love and integrity and dignity, then you see that in other people. And when you see them fall, you see yourself as a fallen person. You understand your deficiencies. And by looking at them with this understanding, you can begin to communicate with them in a totally different way. You can appraise them higher and value than they do themselves. And through that, you can change other people. But more importantly, you become a vehicle of change for the world. You can go in all of your interactions. You can treat people with a love that it's just like a reminder to them when you interact with them that there's something better in them than they've gotten credit for, that they see in themselves, that maybe other people have affirmed in them or validated them for. And you bring it out of people that way. A lot of what you have to do, this faking it till you make it stuff, this is kind of a way to project it. in a certain sense. Maybe the left brain might be able to make use of this idea, because people need to see an example. They need to sometimes have somebody come and introduce a new idea into their lives. In this world where we have so much information, yet it's so underutilized, people are lacking an understanding of their ability to improve themselves. And it isn't until somebody steps in and say, hey, there's a different way to do this. Hey, there's a different way to see this. Because, we have a television sets, and people will watch the television and they'll see the same ideas repeated over and over, and they see their friends, and their friends are all the same, just like them, and they're all just repeating and projecting out who they think they are in other people and having it projected back, and we're all just going in circles in that way. But when somebody comes in and says, wait a second, let's stop the cycle, let's reevaluate where you're at, because this whole time you've been thinking that you're a bad person, this whole time you've been thinking that you're an annoying, rude person, or that whatever the case may be, whatever the problem is that you're keeping yourself down on. Which, again, key here is you can know who's on the inside by what is coming out toward the outside. So if you see yourself continuously judging somebody's weight, then you know that maybe you're not confident with how you look, whether you're too skinny or you're too large or you eat too much. Whatever stories that you started to tell yourself, for instance, whatever beliefs that you have appropriated from the world, whether it's through a cosmopolitan magazine or whether it's from some other judgment that you've heard tossed around at you or others, it is invalid, so therefore it's erroneous, it's irrelevant where it's come from. The point is you have to stop it. Most people know that it's not smart and a good idea, it's not right to judge people for the way they look. At the same time, they still hold beliefs about vanity. They hold beliefs about the way you should look. They have beliefs about what a healthy person looks like. They have beliefs about what somebody who cares about themselves is. They have beliefs about what's acceptable, popular, cool, and beliefs about the messages that they're sending. And so these beliefs, they turn into judgments. Judgments, let's go back a second. There's love and fear. Okay, the Bible says there is no fear in love because fear has to do with punishment. He who fears has not been made perfect in love. If you're judging, that's because you're coming from a place of fear. That's a place of condemnation. That judgment comes through guilt. It comes through the assessment or the acknowledgement or the observance of sin. That sin, which is the disharmony between you and your ideals, you're missing the mark, as a definition of sin is, missing the mark. And you're missing the mark of who and what you would be. And so it's through you not actually living up to your highest standards that actually keeps you from being able to love yourself and thus love and understand and forgive others. So you can't have this disharmony between what you think and what you do and not expect to become eventually somewhat hostile or judgmental towards other people. The key is because we know that we're all sinners and we sin until the day that we're perfect, even we're hypocrites, as long as we tell somebody to do one thing and we're still not aspiring to do maybe an equal thing in another part of our lives equally. So it's our attitude towards the sin. It's the forgiveness. It's the love. It's the understanding. The same understanding that a gracious, graceful God gives us. We need to make sure that we receive that, we accept it, we believe that, and we live through that. And it is in that mode that we are able to accept what is wrong in our lives with love and understanding, and therefore move forward in happiness and peace. And then we're actually in a place where we're not carrying the baggage of our guilt, because now we have understanding. So now we can see somebody maybe sinning either in a way that we ourselves sin or a way that we have never ever thought of sinning, and we can still see them from a gracious perspective. And so you need to get the baggage off yourself, and that is the way to do it. You're not going to be able to maybe necessarily become perfect overnight, and so relieve yourself of guilt so you can start to love yourself and see that love reflected back. but you can accept the grace. And through accepting that grace, you're actually going to be able to start alleviating a lot of sins, a lot of things that you thought were required out of you in order to survive, things that you'd rather not do, are actually just pieces of you striving to survive. You're trying to keep parts of you alive. You don't realize you're in survival mode, but you're trying to survive in an environment that isn't actually trying to destroy you. It's trying to keep doing this, or life is going to bring me down, or I have to keep doing that, or these circumstances are going to come and trip me up. It's this belief that the universe isn't for you, that the universe is trying to is just sabotage your progress. So you can know eventually, as you start to think correctly, that you are not being sabotaged, that life is there to support you. And so now you are able to see other people, fast forwarding back to where we were, we can support other people even when we see them in their worst condition. We can understand them and love them even when we see them doing something that we never thought of doing, something that maybe we do ourselves without even having any more to judge them, because now we've disassociated ourselves from the interpretation of judgment. That's the problem most of us have, and that would be the solution. Now, if you're thinking thoughts in your head at any time which ridge up against your ideals, then you can know that those are places that you have beliefs that that are actually ingrained in you, that need to be rooted up and then replanted with something else. Most of the time it's not enough to root up a belief. You've got to put a new belief in there. That old belief a lot of times was put there in order to protect something or justify something or explain something to yourself. You can now put the truth in that spot and cultivate that instead. That way it's not all about rooting out and keeping it unrooted, but instead cultivating and actually growing something you want. So part of that is going to require that you start to treat yourself with a higher expectation, and then look at all of your thoughts through the magnifying glass, not of judgment, but of love and understanding. And through becoming conscious of the thoughts and the feelings you have, you're going to see where your shortcomings are. And these are your shortcomings not in the sins themselves, but in the sins of judgment. The Bible says, "Judge not, and you will not be judged." And I think one of the biggest problems that we're having is not that we're sinning and don't know how to stop so much, because that falling away of those sins is a byproduct of no more judgment, of love and forgiveness. You can actually consciously choose to forgive and love yourself. And as you do that, with every negative thought that comes up, you're still going to start to feel peace, understanding, patience, and compassion for yourself and for other people, for your circumstances, situations. And it's going to give you courage and confidence to keep going, and things are working out on your behalf. And you'll see that they do. It's actually half of that, the confidence that it's going to work out, is what makes it work out, which is so amazing. A lot of people think that other people are confident because they know of certain circumstances that are going to support them. In reality, they have the guts to know, and it really does take guts and courage to believe that they're going to be okay, because the universe supports them, because no matter what happens, everything works out for good. Whatever is meant for evil, the tools and instruments that are meant to come against you can be used for good. And no matter what happens, they're going to come out of it okay. Some people kind of live a life of they've got nothing to lose, or I could lose it all and I'll be able to rebuild, or no matter if I lose it all, I'll still have it all. I'm still going to be full and complete on the inside. And that's the real stability, that's the real peace that you need to have. Now, that's the peace that's going to make it awesome, make your life awesome on a rainy day, or a cloudy day, or a sunny day, or a tornado day. That is the place that you're really seeking after. That's the inner peace. You can't take the stuff with you when you die. You can only take with you your character. You can take with you the intellect of the love and that you've cultivated, the inward life. That is what you take with you. However, because it is a universal law that as within so without, it's like Paul said, I pray that you prosper just as your spirit prospers. You want to make sure that your spirit is prospering, in that it has the intellectual and the spiritual food that it needs, the understanding and the correct thinking that is going to eventually come back to you. So you treat people the way you want to be treated, and give and it will be given to you. Pressed, shaken down, running over will be poured into your cup. Okay? So from this mindset, all of a sudden, now we disarm ourselves. We disarm ourselves from the need to have things. We disarm ourselves from the need to prove ourselves. We disarm ourselves from the need to be better than other people. And we disarm ourselves from the need to justify who we are, whether it's justify ourselves in front of other people because of our sins that we've committed, which is the remembrance of the continual judgment that we hold against ourselves. And in that way, we bring it about. We keep it alive. When it's already been forgiven and forgotten, we keep it in our realm of thinking, and that becomes we become a self-fulfilling doom prophesier on our own life. And so when we start to figure out that all we really need is to know who we are, and in reality that's a piece of God, that's a child of God, and that we're loved, in that way we're able to dismantle our need to judge ourselves, to be fearful about what's coming against us, and to blame others for the circumstances going in life. We're able to take that accountability, empower ourselves, and thus be empowering to other people. And in that confidence, we start to attract what we want into our lives, and in a very fast, exponentially fast manner. Because a lot of the things that separates people from what they want is, yeah, they'll call into their life what they want, but fear will keep them from reaching for it. Fear will say you don't deserve it. Fear is those counter intentions, the cross purposes that one comes at in themselves, that says, you can't actually have that. That can't work out because of this. Whenever you do this, you feel those beliefs, no matter what has happened, the new belief that you need to be privy of is that all things are possible to them that love God. And you are in a good communication and a good relationship to the universe, or God, as I prefer to refer to the universe as. But it's all the same, because God is everything. God is the energy, the matter, and energy, space, and time. It's the atoms, the neutrons, the protons, and the electrodes, and the quarks, and all these properties that make up matter, energy, space, and time in this dimension. And your relationship internally to the peace that is in everything, the peace and the love that infiltrates everything, is going to allow you to feel comfortable when you interact with this or that in an area or place and time that maybe once upon a time you could not see yourself interacting with, or others maybe wonder how you feel like you have this authority to interact in whatever capacity in order to appropriate the things that you desire that may seem far out of your reach. It's only been ideas up until now that separated you from what you really want. And so, because that's true with everybody, some people will come at you and wonder, where do you get your authority to do this? Who do you think you are? What makes you think you can do that or this? And when reality, what they really want to know is, how can I do that too? What are you doing? Share with me this new paradigm that you're living in, this perspective that you are operating through, because I see that you are basically going and taking what you want in life. And it seems unfair because I don't know what you know, and nobody's telling me, and I feel like it's being withheld from me. In reality, it's not being withheld from them. They just are not knocking. Knock, and the door shall be opened. Ask, and you ask and seek, and you shall find. Ask, and you shall receive. And it's so simple, but because of people's self-esteem, because of their integrity issues and things of that nature, they are actually separating themselves from what they want. And they don't realize that those inner thoughts, those inner feelings, that inner integrity is the key to getting what they want. Instead, they feel like, a lot of people feel like these are the barriers to getting what they want. Nice guys finish last. People who take what they want get what they want. And they start to buy into this idea that if they want to get something, they're going to have to step over a few people. It's a dog-eat-dog world. And that's the hard way of doing it. That's the way that's going to maybe get you what you want, but you're going to do it through committing unrighteous acts, through compromising your integrity and your dignity, and at the end, you're going to be in a state of paranoia, you're going to be susceptible to losing it, you're going to be subject to fines and penalties both in this life and the next. That is not a solution to a problem. I'd rather have nothing than to attain everything or really anything through unrighteous means. So when it comes down to it, if you are really seeking out for the answer, for the long-term solution, for the prosperity, and for the lasting fulfillment in your life, it's going to require a meaningful change, a sacrifice of your old ideas. The old fears, you want to get rid of these. You just don't know what you're going to substitute it for. Now you know you substitute it for correct thinking. You substitute it for inward appreciation and joy for what you've always had, but never really received because you didn't appreciate what was given to you. You didn't believe that you had actually been given something. But it starts out as the intangible things. You feel like this intangible thought that somebody is taking something away, or this intangible thought that I have something to prove, and the need to acquire this intangible idea that I am better than him or her, that I have more, or that I'm winning. I mean, these are just ideas, and these ideas are illusions. They're false, filthy, toxic interpretations that separate and diminish the qualities of love and try to break them down into and bring them into the third dimension of things that operate in a very low frequency. Pretty much trying to circumvent the system, shortcut the system. I'm not going to worry about being a good person and waiting for God to give me things when I can just go and take it. And it's a lifelong system, personal philosophy that many people build on just taking it and doing what you got to do, move these objects. That has actually brought them to a place of total confusion when it comes to trying to be the proper person that they feel like they can be on the inside, and having that joy plus the things that they want at the same time. So anyway, I think I've discussed in so many ways the way to get what you want, and that's simply to be the kind of person that is deserving of all things. What's deserving and what's worthiness? It's somebody who's living in alignment with their beliefs. It's somebody who believes that where they're out of alignment, that God understands, forgives them, doesn't judge them, and that they, through non-judgment and practicing forgiveness, can actually bring about the relief that they need in order to see straight. Once a person commits the sins in their life and they start to gather and carry the guilt, they start to replicate those sins. They have to protect those sins with lies, and they have to continue to do those sins in order to stay where they're at. And then it's through those means that a person's life gets into disarray. When they start to accept the forgiveness and the love of God that is there naturally offered, all of a sudden now the person can go ahead and start appropriating what they want and the confidence that they deserve it. And things work out to do that because now the person is in harmony with their beliefs, so the energy's there, they ask for what they want, their belief now is focused and it's strong, powerful because they're happy. They don't even have to fake their happiness because they're naturally happy as a byproduct of living this life. And all of a sudden their magnetism skyrockets. That is the key. Anything that maybe anybody has ever told you, or you've ever heard a side of that, of how to attract things into your life, I mean, unless it goes along the lines of you've got to do inner work when it comes down to it to make the best of everything, if it's anything other than that, I would go as far as to say that it's an untruth, that it's a lie. There isn't a way that you can try to circumvent and short circuit the system in different ways. The tips that I've given you are really more than instructions of things to do. They are markers of your progress. They are the symptoms of the byproduct of a life which is coming into its fullest expression. You're naturally not going to overly need something. For instance, as we were talking about, you're naturally going to have a clear imagination, but now you can constructively, consciously, and with this knowledge that the left brain needs so much, the instructions, the protocol, the procedure, the processes that you're taught These things that you learn high and low are actually things that have come out at one time or another of the minds of people who live in integrity. And so they're able to articulate what they do, but what maybe sometimes is not being articulated until you read the full definition or articulation of how they've come to be in their own particular ways, is the spiritual work that they're doing in the background, is the love and the forgiveness and the way that they treat the universe and they treat each person in every moment of their life. That is where the ultimate happiness comes from, and everything else is just sprinkles on the cake. And so while we do want to make an adjustment here or there in the way maybe we whip the frosting, we whip the icing across the top of the cake, which is our techniques. It's the way that we approach the things. The cake itself is the stable inner man of integrity, and the sprinkles is all of the good things, all that you're attracting to yourself that match that inner cake. Hopefully I didn't confuse you more with that random cake analogy. But hopefully you understand what I'm getting at. The cornerstone, the foundation, the structure has to start with you. And the way you go about maybe calling things into your life, those can vary. For some people it's a meditation. For some people it's a motive. They're going to sit there and visualize. But for all of us, no matter really how you look at it, anytime we're conveying our desires into the universe, it's a mode of prayer. It is asking. We are going about believing. Ask and believe that you receive, and then you will receive. And then the receiving is a byproduct of the confidence that you're deserving of. It's a byproduct of the expectation that you're holding for what you're desiring. So you can cultivate what you want in your life by cultivating who you are to yourself first. You've heard the analogy of the vessel. It's maybe dirty on the inside, clean on the outside. You want to attract a clean, you want to attract a full life, which let's say the full life is wine and the vessel is the body that you're in. And yet the inner walls, the inner self, let's say the mind is corrupt. Let's say the inside of the vessel is actually dirty. You don't want to put clean fluids inside a dirty vessel. You don't want to polish the outside so that maybe you're just doing the procedures and the techniques and it seems like you're doing the right thing, or maybe you are doing the right thing from all appearances. But if the insides are completely in order, if the insides are completely clean, then the outside will become clean also. The outside will reflect. The outside of the vessel will be as easy to polish as you would like to be polished. But it starts with the inside, and that means integrity, that means dignity, that means all these things that involve confronting the inner self. So if you have any questions about what you're doing in your life, I would just take this. I would say I need to approach life from a vantage point where life is actually a school for me. Everything that I see, hear, believe, do, the interpretations of what comes out of that voice in my head, what it says when it sees this, what it thinks or feels when it sees this. If it's feeling fearful over something, I know that I have a belief about it, about my interpretation of what I'm experiencing that I need to reapproach. This is the real secret to the law of attraction. And it doesn't maybe seem like a secret to say become a good person and good things happen to you. But, you know, sometimes weird bad things will happen to good people. We know good people who aren't perfect. Maybe in the realm of their imperfection is actually where the cause for this condition is in their life. Maybe it's a physical ailment, whether maybe it's something that happens to their home, or maybe it's the circumstances of supposed bad luck. But for people who are actually through and through quite clean, even when something like that happens, they're still rejoicing, they're still praising God. Things are actually happening for the better. What appears to be bad is actually an opportunity for God to move in and make things good.
So if there's something not working out in your life, you can probably know that if your interpretation isn't that it's happening for the good because all things are working out to get better, but that it's bringing you down or circumstances are against you, then you can know that you're probably not in complete harmony with your beliefs and with your own perspective on yourself. You're not forgiving yourself in that way. And it's through doing that that all of a sudden everything seems to work out. Everything changes and crystallizes into something better. And in the transient parts of life, those relationships, the circumstances, and all of that continue to be flows of good and of progress and of growth, fruitful. So there's really no way that you can look at yourself and your circumstances and not see that it is the inner self, the inner man, which is culpable for what's happening on the outside. It is your natural birthright to, through the forgiveness of God, through a manifestation in this realm as a part of God, to have all good things. God desires all good things for you. He desires you to have the desires of your heart. And so if there's anything getting in between you and that happening, it is yourself. It is your ego. The devil works through the ego, and it is, and the devil is, in the details. All throughout the ego and all of these beliefs is the spirit of Satan. It's the lies. It's the deception. It's whether you brought the deceiving on yourself and you've created storylines, or whether somebody has infected you or brainwashed you, or you've been raised up in a culture, a society that embraces things of lowered value. Whatever that is, all of that, and whatever separates you or seeks to separate you is actually not of God. And so you can know that there is no evil in good. So a good tree cannot bear bad fruits, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruits, but a good tree produces good fruits, and a bad tree produces bad fruits. And also there's no lukewarmness in the situation. You need to be able to go to some extremes in clarifying the expression of your reality of the highest goods that you desire in your life. For example, there's one guy who's a good guy, and then there's one guy who's a bad guy, and then there's a guy who's in the lukewarm area. And so he's like, I'm basically a good guy, but sometimes I do these evil things. I do these evil things, and I'm kind of evil here, but I'm kind of good here. But I'm basically, okay. So that lukewarmness is where a person's going to see good, but then bad, good and bad, combinations of it, and he's going to have a hard time manifesting everything that he wants. The Bible says, I would rather you be hot or cold, but instead you're lukewarm, so I spit you out of my mouth. So sometimes you see a person who's evil, right? Evil, but they are completely evil, and they seem to prosper. And then you see a person who's good, but they're completely good, and they seem to prosper. And then here's the middle zone, where most of humanity is, where they're neither completely, or strive to be completely good, or completely evil, and as a result they get a mixed batch. And so, I would venture to say, if you're 51% good, as far as living up to your highest ideals and who you are, you're going to get 51% good results. If you're 81% good, 81% of your life is going to be good. If you're 95% good, 85% of your life is awesome. And wherever you see that might have a defunct relationship or a defunct aspect to your life, you can know that this is a reflection of something else that's going on in your life, something you're not confronting or addressing, something that maybe you are avoiding, something that needs to be handled perhaps. A lot of times these things just come into your life to wake you up. And it isn't there necessarily so much to punish you, maybe it's to help you purge out the sin. So it's like it says in the Bible, Jeremiah, he says, "Woe is me, for I am undone, for I dwelt amongst the people of unclean lips. An angel takes a hot coal, places it on his lips, burns, and purges out that sin." And sometimes that burn comes in the form of somebody coming and doing something to you that's not good. Something falling apart that you would put your time and effort into. Maybe the burn comes in the form of an actual burn. Maybe you put your hand on the stove. But it's there to help purge the sin, because those experiences teach you. They awaken you. They make you privy. They bring you in the present time so that you can actually be who you are meant to be. which is a person of integrity, a person of love in that expression. So that's all I'm going to say about this matter. I just wanted to take a point and especially bring to light that if you didn't know that you are the creator of your universe, whatever is within is a reflection of what is without, and so you can change things on the outside, and it might prompt some changes on the inside, but it won't keep until you accept and habitualize those new ways of being that you've prompted. So it just depends how you look at it a little bit, but I think we've spoken enough on that matter. So anyway, I hope that this information has helped you out, and I hope that you are making transformations continuously every day. Read new material, listen to new material, become obsessed with this sort of material. Listen to all the speakers there are, read all the books there are, and follow up every question you have on the internet or through books and through the encyclopedia or through the metaphysical archives and so on. And then eventually you're going to start to see why knowledge is power. Eventually you're going to start to purge out the sins. And it's like Plato said, know thyself and you will know the universe and its gods. Know thyself, who you are, why you are, all the details of why you think and feel the way you do, and you're going to understand and be able to accept, forgive, love, and be compassionate with other people. And so that starts with a personal decision to take accountability for yourself and to start to accept some truths that maybe you haven't been accepting or that you've been ignoring in your life. So here's wishing you all the luck in future manifestation. This has been Robert Wallace, and I look forward to seeing you next time.